Good afternoon. We are going to go ahead and begin, so I'll call this meeting of the Oldham County Board of Education to order. It's August 29th, 2022, and we are at the Arvin Education Center. The first item of business, Superintendent, is to approve an agenda. Do you have any corrections or additions for us?
Yes, I have two items to note, changes not in our agenda, but two supplements. And the enclosure for B5, the enclosure for B9 is they're presented to board members for corrections. And it's just really a simple name change referencing for a couple of our schools.
Thank you. So I would like a check who? Superintendent?
It wasn't. Do I need to say it again, Lori? Okay. So just to clarify for our board members, there's two items, two supplemental items for change adjustment, and that's enclosure for B5 and enclosure for B9. And the reason for that is just a names referencing two of our schools that was incorrectly noted in your packet.
All right, thank you, sir. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor? And that's 4-0. Thank you. I am going to ask Mr. Rich Gravis to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. No. Fine.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gravis. We are going to proceed directly to the instructional session. Superintendent, I'll let you make introductions, sir.
Sure. I'd like to invite Mr. Gravis to come forward and share with the board a personnel update.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is test. Is that on? Is that on? There you go. All right. Good afternoon. Here today to kind of give you guys an update on where we are in terms of personnel with hiring, outs, ins, pinch points, and so forth, to kind of give you a state of the union of how we're doing. So a big question we ask every year, if this is on,
There it
is
goes.
looking at the number of outs, number of teachers we're hiring, and then also specifically who we're losing to Jefferson County and how many we're gaining from Jefferson County. So up here on this chart, you have a 6-year breakdown of the numbers. So looking at this year, 21-22, or the end of last school year, from the spring, when we start in March, meeting with teachers, or meeting with principals, and surveying teachers, we get an idea of who's not coming back. So since the spring through the summer, we've lost 155 teachers that have decided to resign or retire. The second column is how many we lose during the year. Obviously, we don't know. We're still just the first month into the school year. I can tell you that right now we have 8 teachers that have asked to be released from their contract for this school year. We've been able to release 2 of them upon finding a suitable replacement, so there's 6 still waiting to be replaced. You can compare those 2 numbers before we look at ins and outs from JCPS over that 6-year period, where we've lost 155 teachers who decided to leave since the end of last school year, compared to 138 at the end of the 2021 school year, 112, 105, and so on. So you can see the gradual rise in teachers leaving Oldham County schools, but it's much more than just people leaving Oldham County schools. And then you can see the number of teachers that have asked to leave during the school year. Like I said, we've got 8 right now, but early on, 41 last year asked to be released from their contract, compared to 18 during the 19-20 school year, and then it's kind of been steady in the upper teens, lower 20s. So I know the big thing that we report every year to the board is how many teachers are being asked to go to JCPS and how many teachers we're getting back in. So first off, I will tell you that these numbers are somewhat flawed in that we don't know specifically where every teacher is going. unless they report to us directly, or more specifically, we get a verification of experience from their new school district asking for the verification of experience. With that, we do know for certain, though, that of those 155 plus 8, so 163 teachers that have left or being asked or asking to leave, 26 of those we can confirm have asked to go to JCPS, but we've gained 18 who have come from JCPS to join Oldham County Schools this year. You can look and see again that trend. Last year, 19 teachers we can confirm went to JCPS from Oldham County, where we gained 14, 29 in 1920, where we gained 13, 29 again in 18-19, but gained 18, and then pretty even the 17-18 and 16-17 years, where lost 24, gained 21, lost 17, gained 14. Okay. Any questions on that information?
Thank you.
All right. So current openings, and this has changed. This is a living document, and this is the third time I've changed it. Like, what you all have is different than what it is right before I left, because people come, people go. These numbers were from this morning, and it's already changed. So we now currently have 155 openings. 25 of those are coaches. 14 are in our child care, after-school care centers in our elementary schools. 12 ECS certified, so you're talking your LBD, MMD, EBD teachers. 23 ECS classified, our special ed aides. We have 3 elementary teacher openings, 7 high school teacher openings, 10 middle school teacher openings, 23 maintenance and custodial, and then it fell off there, 11 food service openings. So kind of giving you an idea of what those are. And then kind of going along with that are our pinch points of areas where we know we're struggling and having issues with finding people. The big one, certified, or math and science. That's a struggle across the country right now. Our child care aides, met with the child care directors, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, and they're really struggling with finding staff to maintain the level of need that they have of parents wanting their kids to be after school, and they have to abide by a ratio, and they're not able to fulfill all the requests from parents because they don't have enough workers right now to fully run the daycares or after-school programs. Substitute teachers, we know has been a need for several years. And then our ECS staff, our special education certified and classified staff are a big need. Our custodians and maintenance workers are a need. Bus drivers, right now, talking to Mr. Dees, we have all of our routes covered because of the consolidation. However, we can definitely use more bus drivers to help ease that pain. And then food service workers are big areas. Questions on any of that so far? All right.
Thank you.
All right, so a lot of this isn't new, but looking at, what's the cause of this, this is definitely not unique to Oldham County Schools. This is a nationwide program, or nationwide problem, where school districts across the country are facing shortages. We knew this was coming. We could see the trends years ago, pre-pandemic, and we're aware of it. And then the pandemic just kind of heightened the lack of supply to meet the demand of the teacher shortage. But it's being reported across the country, all major networks, news sources, outlets. It's not a surprise to anyone. No matter what you read, though, you're going to find 4 or 5 of the same issues that are causing this shortage in education. All right, those are people reporting there's still lingering effects from the pandemic. A lot of people are found being able to work from home very convenient, and for some it's definitely better work-life balance, being able to work from home. And when we return, that education is not in that spot where we can continue in-home learning. That's not how we do things right now. That people reporting that as an issue, feeling like people are not feeling necessarily comfortable being in classrooms with the pandemic. The issue of sick leave and so forth for for COVID. Again, in these articles are what people are saying. Teacher pay is an issue that you guys are well aware of. Again, not an Oldham County issue alone, but, you know, from these articles that you read, pay is an issue of why people are not getting into education. People reporting politics. They feel that, you know, education has become a political football, and they feel like, you know, they're the bad guy, and, you know, it's not a desirable field to get into because they feel like, you know, they're constantly being scrutinized for what they do and not sure how they're supposed to do it. Added responsibilities and expectations that teachers are saying are taking away from their daily duty of lesson planning and providing instruction and monitoring student learning. Again, these articles are talking about the teachers are reporting just the extra requirements, the extra expectations that are being put on teachers for data collection, other things that are just becoming more and more burdensome and making the profession harder and harder to really focus on student learning. Right? And the last thing that I can definitely talk about firsthand from experience is the decreased enrollment in teacher preparation programs across the country. Last spring at U of L, I think there was a total of 30-something that were graduating from the University of Louisville in education. In the fall, so the way U of L does their student teaching, most of their secondary teachers do their student teaching in the fall right now, and then their elementary do it in the spring. I try to take principals with me to go. We had a principal that went and was in need of a science teacher. I was like, come with me. It'd be a great time to meet one and, try to make a connection. We were there for half the event, and we had not met one science teacher come through. And so I went to the person at U of L. I was like, hey, where are all your science teachers at? And they're like, you have the one. She was already with us as a student teacher last year, and that was the only one in U of L's graduate program last year. So that's alarming and concerning.
So, Mr. Gravis, those numbers that graduated in the spring, how do they compare to former years? Do you?
I mean, there used to be like hundreds, and we would have lines of people at like our booth because people wanted to be in Oldham County schools. And it's not that they don't want to be in Oldham County schools now, but there's just not the number of people that are going through the program. In talking to U of L, Bellarmine, Cumberland's, who else did I speak to recently? WKU. I mean, they're struggling to find students that want to get into the education field right now. So with all that being, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if there are any other questions at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with all that being said, again, coming straight from just reading articles, news, and so forth, I just pulled just random, I just went through our exit surveys from last year, and these are like seriously like the first 4 or 5 I just pulled, and the responses from teachers or classified staff that left us match exactly those things that we just listed of concerns about the reason for not wanting to be in the profession or maybe leaving Oldham County specifically. So just not going to read these all word for word, but the first one, responsibilities do not match the pay scale. We are very underpaid. Support teachers by giving them ample planning time to work on essential things such as planning, assigning student work, etc. Maintain competitive pay. I love the overall work, but the culture and attitudes of people, some coworkers, parents, and students at blank has changed over time. It is no longer an environment I would like to work in. That's sad. That hurts. And then the last one, I knew it was time for me to pursue a career outside the classroom. The decision is what is best for my mental health. The amount of stress classroom teachers are currently under, I do not feel supported by the county and the administration, as well as I do not agree with the direction the district is currently pursuing. So, I mean, those are very telling. And I could pull more and more and more, and they're, generally along those same lines of those same responses from those that completed the exit survey from last school year. Any questions on any of those?
I would add that for the first time, really, in my tenure on this Board of Education, we have also seen some exit slips that state that people are leaving the teaching profession.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. It's not just resigning to go to JCPS. People are leaving totally out of the field. All right. So what are we doing about it? So there's been some strategic planning, and I think we've made some positive steps that we'll talk about in the next slide. But last year, Dr. Radford initiated the RRI committee, the Retention, Recruitment, and Induction Committee, and we met throughout the late winter and spring and had some really good discussion. And there's some things out of that committee that aren't done yet, but I think we're making progress. And that committee consisted of teachers, classified staff members, administrators, people from the board. So it was a good mix to hear from all parties and get a good voice. Obviously, the 3% salary increase. While some people wish it was more, we're very appreciative of that from the board. So thank you. We moved ECS aides, our special education aides, from the 103 pay scale to the 105 pay scale. Plus increase the half hour. So they increase in pay and then more time in the day to increase their pay. Lori and Heather, we worked with them, and they've been doing an awesome job of running with it, of creating recruitment videos. And we've got those attached to the website. So when you go and said, about job opportunities, those links are there, and they direct you to, if you're interested in becoming a bus driver or food service or substitute. Those are there, and I know they're working on some other ones. And then shout out to Camden Station. I know Mr. Martin's here.
Mm-hmm.
They created their own recruitment video, and I have that attached directly to their specific job postings. Just kind of show people what Oldham County is all about. So that those are good things. Also in the late winter, Dr. Smith got us to get a interest in becoming a teacher survey on the website, and we get hits on that pretty frequently. I'd say that, over the last couple months, we've had 30 or so ask about how to become a teacher. And so we've answered every one of those, and we've been able to hire some people off of that, which is good. Because people are reporting that, universities aren't calling them back, and they can't get information from universities, or they're struggling to get information from the Education Professional Standards Board, who's the certifying agency for the state. So as I've somewhat joked, I feel like I've been a life counselor this past summer in helping people navigate the waters of getting into the profession.
Thank you.
Last year, too, to help with the sub issue, we had the dedicated subs, and then we added the stipend, and that worked really well. But I will tell you, from on operations side, it was kind of a logistics nightmare on all the paperwork that it was putting on payroll on the dedicated subs. So we've kind of pushed that back for now to not do it this year just yet. We're looking at some other possible things, but you guys did approve the monthly stipend for subs. If they work 10 days in a month, they get the $100 per month, and we've been promoting that, and hope we'll start seeing some progress from that. At the last board meeting, I believe you guys reduced the tuition for out-of-district staff. I know that's something that came out of the RRI committee, one of the concerns and one of the requests, so that's a positive. And then the Studer Group, which we started working on, I guess it was in the spring, and working on those results. So with that, some positive momentum with things that we've seen so far. So we've hired 25 emergency certified teachers, and that is more than in my 7 or 6 previous years as personnel director combined that we've hired. And while that may not be, they may not be fully trained as teachers, my positive spin on that is that's 25 members in the community that wanted to step up and help our kids. And they should be commended and applauded for taking on that challenge. And I know the schools and the principals and the administrative teams are going to work diligently with them to help them learn the ropes of what it means to be a teacher. But I'm thankful for those 25 so far that have stepped up. People have already reported positive results from the initial Studer survey. I know when we got, this summer, we got feedback from just the administrative teams that had the survey taken about them, and people had already commented that they'd seen positive change from internally from the results of that, and seeing that the results that departments got were making a difference already. So that's great. And then when I wrote this, I guess a couple of weeks ago, we had hired 147 certified teachers for the school year. We're now up to 160 that we've hired. So we've got more to go, but the fact that we've hired 160 teachers in the summer is pretty awesome. I mean, that's a lot. We normally hire about 100 on average. So we've almost, doubled that in the short summer. So that is a positive, that there are 160 people that are stepping up, and hopefully we'll get the rest of the certified staff filled, and we'll get our classified staff and support staff in place to help our teachers and make our schools run very efficiently for the year.
Let me ask Mr. Gravis if there are questions at this time.
I have a question.
Okay, hold that thought, Patrick.
Mr. Gravis, would you explain, because just to make sure everybody understands, that when you say emergency certified teachers, they are certified teachers, but just
Yes,
not in their curriculum?
Yes, it's a one-year certification. It's only good for this year until June 30, 2023, and then it expires. And the requirements from the state are that you have to have a degree with a minimum GPA of a 2.5, and that you have a background check and so forth, and then you can apply for a teaching certificate in whatever field. And I know, like, some schools have been very specific. I think all of them really have been, but especially our secondary, of finding not just anybody with a degree and teaching any random thing. They've been very specific about finding someone with a degree in that field to teach. So it wouldn't be like hiring me to teach math. That'd be bad. So,
Or me.
Yeah.
So they are not already teachers?
correct.
Then,
Oh, they're
Ms.
not
Nykerk?
certified
They're
No.
not. No.
They
Well,
are-
a couple of them have been certified, like maybe they're elementary and they're thinking about getting into special education. And so some of them are just moving into a different field. But a majority of these 25 are brand new.
And is that one and done? So at the end of this year, are they able to be emergency certified again for the following year?
Good question. So pre-pandemic, it was one and done, use it and lose it, and you could never reapply for emergency certificate again. Since the pandemic, and with the teacher shortage at that point, there was a need to renew those emergency certificates. So I've been talking to every one of the people that are emergency certified and telling them, like, we have to assume that this is going to expire at the end of the year, and you need to start thinking about your pathway moving forward.
Yes.
For a lot of them, I mean, like I said, this is brand new, and this is a great entryway to determine if this is something they really want to do career-wise. And I was like, by fall break, you need to kind of start thinking, hey, this is it. This is awesome. This is my calling. Then let's start having that conversation about other pathways to get your long-term certification in place.
Excellent. Good point of clarification. Mr. Kehoe, you had a question?
I noticed on your chart, the one page back, you spoke about salaries. I know it's not the only thing, but in our special call meeting last week, I think Ms. Hunley brought up a good point about industrial and commercial businesses relocating to Oldham County. Do we have any type of committee or anything that meets regularly with the Oldham County development to talk about that? Because we can't sustain our growth in salaries off of residential taxes, and we need additional revenue, and it's hard to pay that and to stay competitive.
You are right,
Understood.
Mr. Kehoe. I'm going to cue the superintendent
Yeah,
because I think he can help with this.
absolutely, Mr. Keo. Appreciate that question. I'm part of the board of directors for the Oldham County Economic Development, which addresses the chamber for Oldham County and also the economic development, and that is a focus of that group or that board of directors to work with our county as a whole to be able to address how we can bring advanced manufacturing and other opportunities to Oldham County to support our school system and our community, and would help alleviate taxes for our homeowners within the county.
Did you have a chance to reach out to Baptist Hospital about the question I had about their tax situation?
I do not have any clarification on that matter as of right now. Sorry, Chair, I would also like to just say, just to share with our board, appreciate our principals and all the work that they've done, and our district leaders, because you can imagine hiring 160 people across our district just from teachers and certified staff is quite an undertaking, given the conditions that Mr. Gravis has gone over. And Mr. Gravis, thank you and your department for all the work that you've done, because I know how diligently you and your staff and everyone, it takes all of us, so really thank you.
It was a team effort for sure.
I'm going to suggest you lock the doors and start passing out applications, Mr. Gravis, to
We can do that.
everybody here who I'm sure want to help.
Check out the district website.
Yes.
If you're interested in becoming a teacher, click the link.
I am glad the superintendent said that, because to be able to hire 160 new members of the staff, in spite of that list that you shared with us, is really excellent work. Thank you. And I agree, applaud our administrators for, I know, for example, Mr. Watkins and his vice principal have been in classes several times since school has started, and I observed a class meeting out here in the hallway on their laptops, because even the sub had not been able to come to school. So I know you all have dealt with these similar issues, so thank you. Ms. Hundley?
Yes. Rich, I just wanted to thank you. I know we get to see every month on our list of why people leave, and I just want to applaud you for putting the sample reasons up there and being transparent and not sugarcoating and not cherry picking the reasons that people are leaving. So thank you for that.
The truth is the truth.
If there are no more questions, we will move on then, Mr. Gravis, with the next part of our instructional session.
Yep.
And is that
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams? Welcome, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. How are you all this evening?
We're all good. I'm just going to answer for everybody. We're all good. We're going to talk about student enrollment.
All right, let's go back a little bit here. All right, so student enrollment. You
Yes,
all
sir.
see this form every day for the first 10 days of school.
Yes.
Thanks to my ever-talented assistant, Sheila Stewart, who is diligent about making sure that it gets done. This is day 8. When we had to have the slides together, that's where we were. Just some things that jump out. Projected compared to actual, we are down 131 students. The accuracy of projections is still at 98.94. So, and I do know that I did get above 99% once we hit day 10. So you will see that when I report it in projections for next year. So I'll move on from that. But the things, again, that jump out, and I sort of just touched on that the total number of students that we had enrolled at day 8 was 12,179. Now, this does not include preschool students, and we had projected at 12,310, so minus the 131. Looking at the capacity of schools, okay, so then in the yellow, you see how it sort of lays out. We have right now, Harmony is above 100% capacity. East Oldham Middle School will actually come down in its capacity rating once they get to move into their new spaces. And then you have Oldham County High School and South Oldham High School also above capacity, and South Middle. So those conversations will begin to say, where are we going school-wise from this point forward. But as a district, we are only at 95.1% of capacity. We do have several that are below that 85% threshold. Crestwood and Locust Grove and LaGrange are my ones that are significantly low, and North High. They did have, and I will say this, they did have a significant number of students, more than normal, choose to go to private schools this year. I think Mr. Wallace and I were talking, and usually I think he usually has about 40 students that choose that route. Now they will have some that will come back, but they had almost double that, I think, this year. Go the private school route, Trinity, St. X, take your pick down that road. So he did lose some more students, so his numbers are slightly lower.
Michael, is that freshman, sophomore, and junior that
That's,
we're going
it's
up,
just
or is
basically the
that
freshman
incoming?
class.
The freshman class?
The freshman class.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's usually, the transition from North Middle to North High is where we see it the most. The last one, and this is a good projection, so each year, each of you know that we sit down and do the staffing meetings with each of the schools. And I will compliment all of the principals. They did an outstanding job this year of figuring out or trying to figure out exactly how many kids they thought they were going to have to staff for. And so they projected it at 12,169, and we have 12,179 students at this point. So we actually have 10 more students than we are staffed for, which is, again, a positive in that.
Yes. Considering we are struggling with our staff numbers.
Considering that we are struggling with our staffing. Okay, other impacts on enrollment. So new subdivisions, we have gotten significantly, we continue to get new subdivisions. There is a trend that we are sort of seeing at this point, that especially some of the bigger subdivisions, that they're not coming in as we sort of had looked and thought that they would come in as. What we are getting is we're getting more high school students, some more high school students out of those subdivisions, but we also have younger families with significantly non-school age children moving in. So eventually we may see that bump from those subdivisions,
Yeah.
but at this point we're not seeing that bump that we thought we would get. You know, Creekstone being one of those, Cherry Glen being the other, you know, because when we had done rebalancing, I knew Cherry Glen was coming, and I was like, oh, they're gonna fill back in Locust Grove, and they haven't yet. So that's something that is impacting that. The other impact is the continued homeschool impact. And Sheila actually got some of our numbers done, and you don't have these, but I do. So last year we had 781 students on enrolled in homeschool. At the point that we produced this, we had 300 students already had their schools registered to be on homeschool. So it is down. What we see is so that we now have 285 homeschools registered for the district, and they're supposed to register their homeschool by the 10th day of school under state law. We have 507 students enrolled in homeschool this year. That is 73 new homeschools and 212 existing homeschools.
Will you send that information to board members,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am, we will.
Williams?
Sheila
Thank you.
literally handed it to me as I was walking out the door to come
Yes.
up here.
Sure.
Just for comparison, so last year there were 455 homeschools with 781 students. And then there were 413 in 2021 with 746 students enrolled. So those numbers are coming down, but the thing is we still have 400 students that haven't either registered their homeschool, and that's a process for us in our office that we send out letters. You haven't registered your homeschool. What are you doing? And we're also in the process of going back through our list of homeschool students and comparing it student to student to try and see if they have re-enrolled for the school year. So those numbers may be coming a little bit later. That's a bigger task than we've been able to pull off at this point.
Yeah.
And also, again, the other thing that we see is the lower birth rate is still impacting kindergarten. That's been a trend for several years. And you know, with projections, it takes that birth rate and says, here's how many kindergartens you should have. And when we jump backwards just for a second, we should have had 877 kindergartners based on the math, and we only wound up with 799. So that's a big drop for us.
Yes.
And with that being said, I am more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions, board members?
Pretty good
We
projection.
appreciate the,
Good job.
Thank you.
yeah, always, Mr. Williams, and we appreciate the monitoring and the work that goes into this.
And projections will be here in October.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We have a third, yes. Why don't you,
I'd like to invite Ms. McKinney to come forward and share with the board an update about AP and ACT.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So today is going to be probably the most brief data analysis review that we've had. Right now, currently, we only have 2 data points that I can share with you due to embargoes. State assessment data from the spring will be available for public release in October, so you can plan to hear the majority of data related to elementary all the way up to high school till then. But we did want to share with you the data we could. which at this point is AP and ACT. So I want to take you through that data, and I'm excited. You may not be able to tell that. I'm excited about the data that we get to share with you this year, and so I think you'll be really proud of the work that's happened with our students and staff, particularly at high school. I'm not going to read each one of these, but I do want to give you just a brief moment to look at some of the highlights that we have coming out of these two assessments.
It may be a little bit challenging to read. I would ask you to
I can read it.
just highlight some of
Sure.
the real highlights, Ms.
Sure.
McKinney.
Certainly, we have some celebrations that are school-specific that you will see on there, and there's certainly more than what I put up here. These are just things that were significantly impressive. For example, North Odom High School students saw an increase in average scores in all 5 areas, as well as a significant increase in the percentage of students who met benchmark in all 5 areas. I want to point out South Odom High School there at the bottom saw a significant increase in the average ACT score of their African-American students. And that was really an important feat for them because they have worked hard targeting that particular population, and to see that growth was really impressive for them. From an AP perspective, all 3 high schools saw an increase in the percentage of students who showed a passing score. That's a score of a 3 or higher, and that equates to college credit for these students and money in those families' pockets. And so we're really excited about that. Again, this is a limited list. I am sure if you want more information that is school-specific, you can reach out to those schools, and they'll be happy to share all of their successes this year. But we wanted to point out just some areas that were super exciting for us this year as it relates to these high school scores. So if it's okay,
Ms. McKinney, these are students who took the ACT
as juniors
last year. And so I'm compelled to remind all of us that these students were still in their 2nd year of the pandemic. So high school administrators, kudos to you all. Thank you.
And really experienced a year of hybrid learning. These are the same groups that would have had a lot of virtual learning opportunities, and so I think that does make this overly impressive. And you stole that thunder, but that's awesome because that's exactly what the challenges these schools faced, and these students and staff have really
Can't help
risen
but
to the
think
occasion.
about our
Absolutely.
staff members in those high schools.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump on in if it's okay, and I'm going to start with AP first, and I just want to remind you all that AP exams are optional exams. They are now part of the accountability model for Kentucky, which we're really excited about because for many years they weren't, and a good portion of Oldham County students take advantage of AP coursework, and so it was a great way for them to show academic readiness. I will tell you, last year in all 3 high schools, we did see some declines, some evidence that the pandemic had impacted AP scores, which didn't come as a total surprise to us, particularly because of the rigorous coursework that's involved here and these students having to adapt to do some of that work virtually. I will tell you, and I'm going to go with each high school very quickly, every school rebounded. And so not only rebounded, but in some cases were back up to where they were in prior years. And so if we look at North Odom High School, again, we did see some impact of the pandemic in previous years. However, they increased their percentage of students who passed an AP course with a 3 or better from a 69% up to a 73%. That's kind of in line on average if you look at 5-year trends with them. It can go up or down pretty significantly for them, but it's right in line with what's typical for them. So really exciting news for them. Also, what's noticeably different about North Odom High School is their enrollment of students who took an AP course and had a corresponding passing score is it is exactly the same as it was in a previous year. We had been seeing in previous years some decline in students taking advantage of AP, as a lot of those students chose dual credit as an option. And so you might have seen some decreases in AP enrollment and some increases in dual credit enrollment. I can't share with you whether or not that's at play here tonight because that data is still embargoed, but know that it certainly can be a factor in that enrollment change. I will say that if you look, they are down from where they were 5 years ago, but again, that can be explained by other equivalent coursework for these students. So great job to North Odom High School, lots to celebrate there. Great to see that rebound for those students specifically. Of really all the the test data that we do across Kentucky, probably what tends to mean the most to students and families and where they have the most skin in the game are things like ACT and AP, that they see a translation to when they leave high school and they see the results of being successful in those exams. If we move to the next one, we're going to look at, well, and I don't know where their data went, OC. Sorry, I will tell you, OC saw, and then I'll skip ahead.
We have it.
I don't know what happened to that. You all have it in
We
your
have
packet.
it, we have it.
So I'm really not sure there. But I will go ahead and tell you, OC saw an increase in their percentage of students with passing scores, significant increase, as well as enrollment. However, their enrollment over time has also declined. I will also tell you that dual credit is something they tend to take advantage of at OC. And so we're excited about the rebound that they had as well. We did see the same rebound at all three schools. Some of our schools, South Odom High, for example, took a bigger hit the previous year, but we're glad to see that OC did rebound from that. Those of you in the audience who want to see that data, I apologize. We will put a link on the assessment page of the website, and you can go in and view their scores. I apologize. Lots to celebrate at OC.
Thank you,
with
Ms.
AP.
McKinney.
So I'm going to skip on ahead to South Odom High. Obviously, huge rebound for South Odom High. Again, their scores in terms of their percentage of students with a passing score increased right back to what is typical for them, but a large increase over last year. They took one of the most significant hits in ACT and AP due to the pandemic, so we're really excited to see their rebound. You can see their enrollment numbers over the last 5 years have significantly declined. Again, however, that is a school who traditionally, embargo data aside, take advantage of dual credit. And so great to see that even though their enrollment is down, their passing rate is still significantly high. And it's important to note that these pass rates, when you see pass rates in the 60s and 70s, that's phenomenal. To see those nationally, those are extremely high pass rates. And so we are excited again about the opportunity for students to be able to get that college credit right here in high school. And kudos to all three high schools for their growth despite the pandemic, despite all the challenges Mr. Gravis has brought to our attention and that we know exist, they are performing. So really exciting news there.
Yes.
So if it's okay, unless you have a specific
Let me ask if
question.
anybody has any questions before we proceed. Okay, thank you, Ms. McKinney.
Okay, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed. So now we're going to look at the ACT. Again, I want to go back to a year ago when we have to say that as a district, we took a pretty sharp hit to our ACT scores. Oldham County does boast extremely high ACT scores comparatively nationally, but we were not exempt from the effects, unfortunately, of the pandemic. And so last year, with the exception of Oldham County High School, who actually saw some gains last year, what we see here is a pretty good hit last year. And so when we look at these scores this year, it's exciting to see that we see an increase in all of our areas. And so you can see the solid bar shows the increase, relative increase over the dotted line bar of last year. So you can see in this instance, as a district, we did see an overall increase as a district, and each and every school also saw an increase in their average ACT score. And we'll look at what those are in just a second.
That is really
It's
remarkable.
exceptional. It's exceptional even when you dig further into the data. I do want to give a shout out to North Odom High School. All schools made increases in all areas for the most part. But North Odom High School saw some significant increases that I have not seen since I have been here. Some huge jumps in some critical areas, and so not that they shouldn't all be proud, most definitely they should, but I do want to take a moment to acknowledge North Odom High School for those gains. They were ones that I double checked because they were significantly higher than what is typical. Just to give you an idea, I put in where COVID was introduced there and the way things looked in terms of our district average ACT score, and you can see that we were going down a bit over time. When you look to the right and at the bottom, you will see those actual sub-scores broken out, and what you're going to notice is even though you don't see numbers here, the patterns are exactly the same. So the groups of kids, it's not like one content area brought any score up or down, I guess is what I'm trying to show here. The pattern is when we see those declines in movement, we typically see them across the board. When we look at what that looks like, we can see that score again rebounding, that average score rebounding back up to more typical for Oldham County, is down just a bit. But again, these students had the same situation as AP students had, et cetera, as we moved through there. And again, what I also wanted to show here was every single content area showed that increase in content score. So again, we aren't looking at just math increase or just reading, but across the board in all 4 areas, we saw significant jumps over the prior year, getting us back to where we are in line with ACT scores that are typical for Oldham County.
Such good news.
It's excellent news. It really is excellent news. I do want to show you what I consider to be the most important ACT data is the percentage of students who actually meet those benchmarks. The average scores are important to see overall movement over time, but if we really want to look at students' preparedness if they choose to go to college when they exit high school, whether that be right after high school or 4 or 5 years later, it's about their readiness to be able to go in to a college course and not need a prerequisite course or remedial course where they don't get credit, can actually go into a college credit-bearing course with some reasonable expectation that they can score a C or B or better in those particular scores. And so I'm always interested to see not only is our average score moving up, but do we have more kids each year actually hitting those benchmarks? And what you're going to see is jumps in each of those content areas, English being at the top, followed by math at the bottom, reading on the right with science on the bottom. You can see those huge jumps for those students, not only again in that average score, but also simultaneously increasing the percentage of students who attain that. So if I used, for example, English as an example, they went from 64% last year who met benchmark to 68. That's typically our highest scoring content area. I'll be honest with you, when we look at math at the bottom, from 39% of students making a benchmark score to 43. Math is one of our most challenging ACT areas. That also nationally is one of the most challenging, and we are doing some investigating to really look into what goes on with that particular score. And then, of course, we went from 49 to 51 and from 40 to 45. So you always want to see those numbers rising together, right? You don't want to get to the point where your average score jumps really high, but you have less kids attaining it. And so we really want to see that movement together, and we are seeing that with all 4 graphs here, despite the interruption that the pandemic caused. So it was a bit of a setback, but we are certainly starting to recoup, which I know many of you have asked how long we thought that would take. And certainly high school is promising, and we hope that our lower levels are able to bounce back this quickly as well. And so finally, conclusions, again, just making sure that you understand that these scores do vary by school. However, every school did see those patterns. I want to be really clear about that. And again, those people who are interested in seeing these unique school scores, we have limited time here, and I know the board has had a little more information. You can go to our assessment website, and you can see those for your unique school and see what's kind of going on there. But I'm also sure that schools send out their own information to support that. I want to conclude with the data that we really look at this every year, and it sort of helps us to know, where do we compete? We know that statewide, our ACT scores boast very high. They're at the top every year, and we tend to do very well. But what we want to also recognize is where we stand as it relates to other places nationally. Yes. Now, Kentucky is unique in that it's only one of 15 states that actually test 100% of its students with the ACT, meaning lots of schools who score better only test very small, some down to 2% of their population. It's usually their elite college-bound kids. So it doesn't always include their most struggling learners, their students from different demographics that may be more vulnerable. Kentucky does test every single student. And so also to know is when you see national rankings put out, that's usually a ranking that shows any student who took the ACT that year. So that could have been a senior, it could have been a freshman, it could have been somebody who took it 3 or 4 times. And so I wanted to be able to give you some relative idea of just how good these scores are, I guess I would say. And so if we considered Oldham County its own state, you would see the first blue bar that says ranking at 17. That's all who took the test. So that means any kid in Kentucky, not just our juniors in the spring, but anybody who took an ACT last year is a part of that score, okay? It ranks slightly higher than 100% of our juniors. So this is our juniors at ranking number 23 who are being compared, again, to districts who, if you look at the parentheses next to each state, it's telling you what percentage of their kids actually take the ACT. So you're going to notice that in the top 10, they're usually testing less than 1/5 of their kids. And so for 100% of our kids to have scores that close or exceeding some of these other districts and schools, it's really, really a telling thing that we need to make sure that we acknowledge that these are awesome scores. And obviously, we want to get better for all kids, but collectively, they're great. I also put Kentucky's data on there for reference as well. And so this is just an FYI for you. And then this is a list just to show you the 15 states that do test all of their kids. And you will probably notice that they are the lowest ranking states in terms of scores. But then again, you are competing against folks who are not testing all of their children. So that's just an FYI I thought you might be interested in. Keep in mind, you're going to start to see ACT data roll out from different news media, and the numbers may look a little different, and it's because oftentimes they are reporting the overall ACT of any student who took it in Kentucky, not just the juniors. So pay attention to which one they're reporting, and that's why you sometimes will see that discrepancy. Our numbers are pretty close, but just a little bit of information for you in case you're interested. Again, I apologize for OC. Don't even know what could have happened there.
We have it,
I'm glad you
though.
have it,
Yeah.
but I apologize to the crowd. And I'll open up for questions.
All right, questions, board members? Ms. Hundley?
How do we do as a county in the state versus, how many counties have higher scores than we do?
We do not know that yet. That will come out when embargo data comes out, national rankings. The state used to, on their own, put out those rankings. They've kind of gotten away from this idea of ranking districts, but districts still rank. And so when it's all public, we literally will go in there and see where we rank. I will tell you, likely, if you take out independent school districts, we would likely be at the very, very top in terms of the majority of these scores. But again, some of those independent districts can creep up there and very competitive. Very
Yes.
competitive. Good question.
Other questions? Mr.
So
Kehoe?
when's the benchmark for the elementary and middle schools due out?
We actually haven't seen our data yet. They are doing standardizing across the state now because we have yet a new accountability model. And so that has delayed things a bit. We look to get our data locally the very last week of September, which probably means the second week of October it will be put out for public release. And so typically it'll be whatever October method you all want in terms of getting that data. But they haven't given us an actual date yet. My gut says it'll be the second week of October for public release.
Other questions? This is excellent news, and congratulations to all of our administrators that are here, and parents, and staff members. Thank you so much for your diligent work with our students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
McKinney. We're ready for the treasurer's report. Ms. Anderson?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
We are in fiscal '23 financially now, our first month of the year, July, and our report begins on page 29. So this page shows our cash accounts, our beginning balance of our governmental and proprietary funds began at $34.4 million and ended with $37.3 million. As you can see on our first line, for our governmental funds, our disbursements were less than our receipts, and this is a change from what we've seen. And that is primarily because we have paid off all our payroll contracts through 6/30 in the prior month. And in July, we are only paying those employees who are full-time, so that will reverse in time. We'll go back up to paying all 2,000 employees. The other information that I wanted to share with you was on the second line for school activity funds. This is not the activity for the month. This is the activity for fiscal '22. So the information for school activity funds is housed in a different accounting system, and we have transferred that information over for the year-end audit, and that is the results of that. So we had receipts in excess of disbursements for that fund. As we look at daycare, you can see our disbursements were pretty high. This is actually 6 months worth of activity that we have transferred over, and so we'll try to keep that a little bit more timely. But that does average to about $192,000 that the governmental funds pay on behalf of daycare, and then they reimburse us. The second section is for the bonded construction funds. Almost zero activity in there, just a little bit of interest on the Camden remaining funds. And the final section is investments. If we turn the page, you can see our cash balances in the governmental funds by fund. You can see that our general fund is negative. When we finished June, that was a higher number, and I have transferred the capital funds request that you guys had approved earlier this year to help cover that, and I will be requesting another one in this board agenda. You can see in our capital outlay, we have $3.9 million. A single year, we get $1.2 million, so we've got about 3¼ years of capital outlay money that's sitting there that we can use according to KDE's directions to help cover some of those general fund costs. And in that next section, the building fund, we've got almost $20 million. That again is an accumulation, waiting for some big projects to happen. When we bonded East Oldham Middle and Buckner Elementary, that cost us $10 million, and Camden was 13.4. All right. So on the following page, we have our historical comparisons report, and numbers are all really looking pretty good where they're expected through all of these. The only item that I'd like to call your attention to is on the general fund prior year annual activity, where we've got full year salaries and benefits compared to full year expenses. And we had historically been around 84%. We're at 81%. And while that might sound good, you can see the increase in our full year expenses from 90 million last year and the prior year to 95, almost 96 million this fiscal 22. So that's a 6% increase of cost. So good for the percentage, but overall our costs have gone up considerably. On the following page is the revenue in detail, and again, the beginning of the year, so kind of quiet. On the following page, page 34, are the expenses by category. In the first section, we have salaries, and I wanted to call your attention to the account 0140, the classified overtime. You can see that that number has increased considerably, although it's not a large number. This represents, in large part, some custodians working some serious overtime hours to make sure the buildings are clean. So they are working very, very hard to make sure that our buildings are covered while we have those custodial openings that Rich mentioned. In the next section, in the benefits, 0232 employer CERS contribution. This year, instead of a 12%, we have a very slight decrease in the percentage rate, so that is welcome news. The next section, professional fees, not too much to comment on there. Property services, we're seeing some things come through that were summer activities. We've got in 0434, we've got a considerable increase in building repairs and maintenance. This is covering floor refinishings for gyms, things like that, getting the schools ready for the start of the new year. We've got an increase in the safety and security, which is Delta Services, making sure that our locks and security systems are working in good order. And then 0439, we had a contracted repair over at Oldham County High School. In the next section, under purchase services, the item that I wanted to call your attention to was property insurance. We've all known about property rates going up, property appraisals, and our insurance has gone up about 29% over the prior year, in part due to that. However, as we look at the total for the other purchase services, we are flat to down for the prior month. In the next section, supplies and materials, we are doing something a little bit different. We are trying to provide easier ability for the bookkeepers at the schools to keep track of the balances that they have collected from parents and how they distributed that to the different activities that their schools are participating in. So for this first line, 0610, you see a very small number compared to prior years, $540. But if you go down a little farther on the next page, you can see about halfway down, we've got 0610, and it starts with DR. So this is drama. So we're going to be able to see how the schools, how much the schools are spending for some of these areas where the parents are paying fees for their kids. So we've got drama, we've got ECS, we've got ELL, we've got F&D, we've got GATES, and down at the bottom page, we've got music, first grade, second grade, third grade. So we're hoping that this will help everybody with transparency and ease a little bit of the work, the bookkeeping work outside of Munis for the bookkeepers. As we go to the next page, page 39, you can see a large increase in supplies for tech software. So this is not just Trey's area, this is everything that everybody's using in the schools that start with a July start date. So we have tried to move some of those start dates to July for our contracts, but this is also an area where we see increases in pricing. So we've got a 5% increase over the prior year, and if you look back to those other 2 years, you can see the increase is considerable compared to prior years. We also have a considerable increase in our 065200, our interactive flat panel devices. So Trey is continuing with the progress that they're making in that area. This is primarily a timing issue. Last year, things were kind of slow getting to us due to chip shortages and other things, but they are moving along on that project. The next page, we have the 07s, our property. The first line item there, land and improvements. We've got tennis courts were renovated this year, and that is the primary increase in that area. And then under the athletic, we have line item 0899 of $20,000. That is athletic insurance that the district pays for the schools, and that will be repaid. So our final line item here, we've got our cost. You can see total cost going in prior years from 2.1 to 2.2, 2.7, and now almost $3 million. On the following page, we have our expenses by function, just the same expenses in a different order. And then on page 45, we have the SEEK replacement grant. That doesn't really come into play until December. So that is not important at this time. And then our following page is the bonding potential, no change on that. And following that, we have our balance sheets by fund, beginning on page 47, and then our income statements starting on page 61 by fund. And that concludes the treasurer's report.
Questions for Ms. Anderson, Ms. Hundley?
Stephanie, I'm just wondering, with the increase in the property insurance, even with property values, even if we got reevaluated, I mean, we haven't burned a school to the ground. That seems like an awful high increase.
I can check with Ann and see what the details are behind that.
Okay.
Other questions?
I think it's more of a comment, but, you know, I heard you say you've had to transfer money from one account to cover, and that is a very short-term fix for a long-term problem. So I think it's something we have to be very mindful of.
It is. It is all taxpayer money. There are certain things that we are allowed to use some of those capital funds for, that we have our 4 nickels. That includes modern technology, buses, and building insurance, and that is about the extent of what we can do. So some of those we had planned at the beginning of the year, and others of those, which included the payoff of those KISTA buses, we had not fully anticipated at the beginning of the year, and sometimes you have to know what the costs are before you can ask for that reimbursement. So we did move some money over and would like to move some more over as well.
Mr. Dodson?
On the buses, you was talking about moving capital over. Do they give you a certain percentage you can move over for? Or?
No, you just have to have available funds and make sure that you don't disrupt those capital funds that you would be using for paying debt service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Anderson, I would like to ask you, for you and your department to consider a way to share the first few pages of this report, either projected or in hard copy. I know this is a difficult conversation for members of our audience to follow. I'll leave that in your hands, but somehow I think we need to be able to encourage the audience to be able to follow this conversation a little bit better.
Do you know the ones that you?
Well, The
you have
first
in
few
mind?
pages, I think, are the most
The cash?
critical.
The cash?
Yes, and the balances in our accounts and so forth.
Okay.
I'll leave that to your discretion.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, including our administrators, who really need to be aware of what the details of our budget are.
All right.
Other questions or comments? So your recommendation is to approve, I'm assuming, Superintendent? I never asked you for that, never mind. Motion to approve made by Ms. Huntley, seconded by Mr. Dodson. All those in favor, I'm a bobblehead now in the middle, 5-0. All right, Ms. Anderson, bills and claims.
All right, page 119 begins bills and claims, and this is a count of the invoices since we last met. We've got 1,572 invoices for almost $5 million worth of costs. And on the following pages are the details of those invoices that we have paid,
Yes, ma'am.
and that includes bills and claims.
And again, additional notes, so grateful for those. Questions, comments? Motion to approve bills and claims, please. Made by Mr. Kehoe and seconded by Ms. Nykerk. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We have a couple sets of minutes to approve, board members. The first are from, I'm getting to it. Yes, from our regular board meeting, July 25th. Are there any corrections or additions? Motion to approve made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by Ms. Hundley. All those in favor? And that would be 4 with 1 abstention. And then we have a second set of minutes, August 22nd. Was our special called meeting. Any corrections or additions? Motion to approve made by Mr. Kehoe, seconded by Ms. Nykerk. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Superintendent, we're ready for your notice to us of the personnel report.
Yes, just draw the board's attention to the personnel actions that's noted in your packet and as presented.
Yes, sir. Any questions or comments? All right, excellent. And we are ready for approval of the consent agenda, which is items A through P. Holy cow. First, let me ask for your recommendation, Superintendent.
Yes, recommend to approve.
Motion to approve made by Ms. Nykerk, seconded by Mr. Dodson. And is there any discussion on any of these items? All right, all those in favor? And that would be 5-0. Thank you all. Superintendent, we're ready for report number 1, sir.
Yes, I'd like to invite Ms. Corson to come forward and share a policy revision update with the board.
Good afternoon, Ms. Corson.
Hello. You all have had an opportunity to review the policy and the proposed changes in front of you. Mostly it changes or cleans up some language that was kind of outdated. I looked at many policies across the state of Kentucky and some of the policies from our surrounding states to see what we could do to make it a little more current with the public expression policies in other counties and other states. This is just the first reading. It's just the proposed changes, so you'll have a month to think about it, and then we'll come back next month and vote on whatever version of the policy you want to adopt.
So, Ms. Corson, we have had some correspondence regarding our public expression policy. I would ask you to highlight the changes that our policy is, that we are proposing.
The primary changes have to do with paragraphs 7 and 9 of the current policy to make clear that we are not taking any action in regards to speakers based on their viewpoint, that we are setting down behavioral expectations and keeping in mind that the board meeting is a business meeting of the board, and that's the primary objective of the board meeting, is to conduct business. The public expression portion of it, should be in that same kind of decorum, whether they disagree with the board's opinion or they or they are agreeing with the board's opinion. So it changes some of the language around that. It reminds people that public expression should be related to topics that are within the board's jurisdiction, which are primarily policy, budgets, hiring of the superintendent. Those are, you know, kind of the big areas. So it's just kind of a refresher, and I know that Lori has worked on a brochure to kind of put those things in a easy to read, able to hand out kind of pamphlet.
Yes, excellent. All right, any questions or comments at this time?
I've got one.
Mr. Dodson?
On appearance, it said the board will designate a minimum of 15, and change it to 30 minutes of its monthly floor expression. I have a problem with the 30 minutes. If you have 10 people, 3 minutes, some people may be left out. And I do like number 7, 3 minutes, and we can allot if we got more, but I would like to see the 30 minutes taken out totally to allow, I mean, people make an effort to come to these board meetings to speak. They ought to be given the time to speak. I do agree with limiting it to no more than 3 minutes, and based on the number of people, less, but I don't agree with the 30 minutes.
That's up to the board, how many
Yes.
minutes they want to set aside.
Yes. Any other comments at this time? Ms. Hundley?
I emailed that today as well, that I feel like we meet once a month and that we are elected officials and that we should allow whoever wants to come speak, and that's the least that we can do. I know that we all have email addresses and people can email us, but as a parent in the district, it's a big difference standing in front of all of us and speaking versus sending an email. So I also support taking out the number of minutes, because if people show up and want to talk, then the least we can do is sit here and listen to them.
Any other comments? All right, we take action on this policy
That's
next
why you have
month.
a month to review it and come back
That's
next
exactly
month.
right. Thank
Okay.
you, Ms. Corson. Superintendent, report number 2, please.
Yes, I'd like to invite Ms. Six to come forward and share with you about Care Solace.
Welcome, Deputy Superintendent.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to share with you a possible joint collaboration with Judge Vogel and the fiscal court. They are considering using federal grant funding to provide a pilot project with Care Solace. And so I wanted to share this with you. It is a web-based navigation system, and it would assist us in locating and connecting our students, parents, and employees with mental health providers. And so we'll just take a look. This is a basic overview. I am not an expert in Care Solace at all, but we will share what we know. We want to, of course, improve outcomes for all of our students, and we emphasize prevention, early identification, and intervention of the social, emotional, and behavior needs of our students. We know that family and community partner involvement is critical to the success of our students and to our intervention framework. So what Care Solace will be or do, if the fiscal court should decide to move forward, is support students, staff, and families in accessing mental health services.
Can I ask a question real quick? Sorry.
Yes.
Is Care Solace what they're calling it, or is that the name of a software program? Or
It is the web-based navigation system. You can find more information at caresolace.org. They are not mental health providers. They assist school districts in connecting families with mental health providers.
Okay, thanks.
So they ensure access to mental health services when mental health is a barrier. And we all know the struggles that our folks have in connecting with mental health providers at times that work for our families. And so even though we've increased the number of resources in our schools, we're still unable to meet everyone's needs. So, the existing mental health care system is broken, we know that. The need for care is recognized, we acknowledge that. We have put programs in place, and we know gaps still persist. So here is what Care Solace will do for us. It can help us expand our existing school resources and mental health services. It will serve as the bridge to community providers, and it provides a wraparound support for our remote environments. So it's 24/7, 365 support, including nights, weekends, and holidays, and breaks. They get a fast connection to care and will receive a call within minutes to get appointments within days, not weeks or months. It's anonymous. It's matched to specific needs. There are 200+ languages and care regardless of insurance, private, Medicare, sliding scale, or no coverage. It's support for all, students, staff, and family members. So one of the things they trademark, is the warm handoff. That's what they call this. They are referred by us, and they do a warm handoff to support school staff and to ensure families connect to those community-based services quickly. They might be online. So someone might get care online if nothing local is available, but they're getting real-time student status updates in our schools. So that's the missing piece, is that we would then get feedback and data about the students who are seeking care. Not necessarily the content of what they're seeking care for, but did they get the help they need? Are they in communication with Care Solace? And that, you'll see the dashboard here in a moment. But they're care companions, again, 24/7, 365, and this would work alongside our existing multi-tiered systems of support. So there's another graphic provided by Care Solace to connect with community-based resources. Here's just a picture of the website. What are you struggling with? Folks can put in what they're struggling with online, or a resource person at school could do that to help with family, and we would connect with community services. So here are some testimonials. One of the things we saw here, for parents like me that struggle to find their children the care they desperately need, this company takes all that stress away. They do the work so I can concentrate on my children. And I think that would be a huge relief when you are struggling to find help for your child, that if this company can provide that type of support, it's a huge relief. This is the data dashboard and what our school counselors and mental health consultants could access. So we would see how many warm handoffs there were, how many total appointments that took place. We would get that follow-up information in general with the graphs. So the cost proposal for a year, typically July 1 to June 30, is $51,000 for a district our size. And so they are willing to prorate this cost for the fiscal court if they intend to use federal grant funding to provide this. And so September 1, of course, it won't be decided by then. So it will be cheaper than $43,000 to do this, and the fiscal court understands this is a pilot. And if it's something that we used and provided benefits, that we would then consider continuing on with this service. Okay.
And
So,
that
do you have
concludes your
questions?
report. Thank you, Ms. Six. Let me ask if the board, Mr. Dodson.
One of the questions, a lot of people have problems calling someplace like this. Is all the information kept personal? All we will get is numbers, not people's names.
Absolutely. It's anonymous and confidential.
Okay.
Good question. Mr.
So
Kehoe.
was there a study or anything done with our mental health counselors or our counselors that signed off on this or suggested this, or in favor of it?
Well, actually, we do know just from speaking with them and collecting data from them that we are struggling to provide services or referrals for all the services our kids might need. Care Solace boasts on their website that currently they work with 3 million students in the United States, 150,000 school staff, and 12 million parents and families to be this care coordinator.
Is there any other districts in Kentucky that's using it?
I don't think so unless they're working alongside right now to do that. They are from California and moving from the west to the east. That's all I know.
And the salary, if there's any, or the cost of this project, if there's any increases, will it be us, the school board, picking up those increases?
If we would decide to move forward in the 23-24 school year, we would need to pick up that cost.
So I want to make sure that the board understands that the county government has proposed that this might be sort of a bridge for the school district in terms of meeting mental health need challenges for our students, and have also agreed to pay for the pilot year. So then it will be incumbent on us to decide how efficacious it is and so forth. Mr. Kehoe, good questions. Do you want? All right. Do you want to add to this, Superintendent?
Yes, just like, thank you, Ms. Six, for presenting this. This is something that I had a couple of superintendents reach out to me to take a look at this program. This is the only thing that I've been able to find or see that could help bridge a gap that is I've spoken very highly of. However, I would also just add to that the conversation with the fiscal court and with the Judge Vogel is that this could be a pilot year, and if we were successful, and it was something, we're not asking the board to take any action tonight, just a presentation, just so that us as a board and the fiscal court are kind of really in the same page. The other piece there is is that if we were successful in implementation, if we wanted to move forward with this, that year two, next school year, 23-24 school year, I have asked if they would split the cost with us if we were successful. And that's nothing that has been solidified, but that is just conversation that we've had, and wanted to share all of that with the board tonight.
And nothing would move forward unless parents and families, guardians were in agreement with this. So my understanding is they call and follow up and make sure that parents were pleased with the result or the student. And so if they aren't pleased, they try to connect them with another local provider.
Yes, excellent. And I would suggest to board members, if they need more information or more specifics, Mr. Kehoe, if you'd like to see where this program is in place and so forth, I'm sure Ms. Six could provide that information. I'm sorry, I will say that all of us sitting up here have received lots of correspondence from families and staff members too regarding the extent of the problem in terms of meeting all those increased mental health needs with our students. And it appears as though there is a shortage of providers in this community, and they also have very limited hours. So our students are being forced to come out of school and miss, in some cases, large chunks of school last year. And so we're trying to really assess the services that we can provide. And so I think it's well worth investigating.
We want to expand opportunities.
Yes.
One other
Mr.
question.
Kehoe.
So during the site-based meetings back in February and March, there was a backlog of services being offered by the counselors. Has that improved any? Because it was pretty significant.
I think to answer that question, we're too early in this school year to answer that question, given that we're just entering the third or fourth week of school. But our folks will work hard to be able to monitor that. And this is one opportunity or one possible scenario or resource that could help us close that gap. We've worked really hard to try to vet this company and making sure that it is, would address the needs that we have, as you've just mentioned, Mr. Keough, that our counselors have shared in terms of supporting students.
I should have worded that differently. Towards the end of the school year, was there an improvement in the backlog of kids being?
I don't have that data to answer that specifically. I can say I don't know that it improved from what we heard in the spring, but we could get something more specific.
Thank you, Ms. Six. Superintendent, we're ready for report number 3.
Okay. I'd like to invite Mr. Bohannon to come forward. Construction update.
Good afternoon.
How are you? In your board packet, you'll find the construction update for August. I'll run through some of the major projects as an overview, and if you'll have any questions, please feel free to stop me as I go. Safety and security upgrade phase 3 at the administrative annex and the transportation department. The cameras have been installed, door systems have been installed. The programming is not yet complete. They are waiting on some motherboards and some backlog on some computer chips for that. The operable gate is pending install, and that will be, we'll work around the transportation schedule, so that might be a fall break project or something. We don't have as many buses going in and out that gate. The athletic stadium and field improvements at various schools project, bid package A, board approved tonight to put that out to bid. The bid date on that will be September 15th, and that will be for the LED lighting at South Odom High School. Bid package B, which actually is referenced as item 11 also on your report there. The concession stand and stadium upgrades at South Odom is in design. And the bid package C, which is the turf replacement at North Odom High School and Odom County High Schools. We've received one of the surveys is complete. We're waiting on the other survey to complete before we come back to you all with design, the next stage of design on that. Odom County High School foundation repairs project and roof replacement. This would be bid package 3 or phase 3, I should say, on that. That notice has been given to proceed with the architects, and as a reminder, that is the remaining 2 or 3, if you include the small section between them, portions of building 1 roof that were not touched in the previous phase. So that's over top of the barrel vault over the gym and the auditorium roof. South Odom High School Phase 2 field house renovation, that work has been substantially completed. The certificate of occupancy was received the first week in August, and just to put on your all's radar, the dedication for that will be held in September 9th. South Odom High School major renovation in Phase 3 for the fire alarm upgrades. The shop drawings have been completed for that. Wiring work is going on in the evenings. They're nearing completion of that, and they are scheduled to start installing the devices for that in October, pending the shipment of those devices. Number 6, Odom County Preschool expansion and roof replacement. Ms. Caston, I have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday, I think, to start to put together the educational specifications for the board's review in September to identify the program ag needs, basically a pre-design on that project. East Oldham Middle School addition and roof replacement. Punch work continues. Remediation work in the front hallway continues. Exterior rain panel and screen installation is ongoing, nearing completion. Roof soffit and fascia, actually I think they might have completed that today. Final plumbing and electrical inspections were received. The water heater installation is complete. Piping and seating and straw was completed today as well too. Commissioning will be ongoing for that for a couple weeks, but we did receive a pass on the temporary certificate of occupancy, and you can strike that last sentence there, that that requirement will not be required by HBC, Housing, Building, and Construction. Number 8 on your list, Odom County High School boiler and cooler replacement. If you all remember, this was a, kind of broke this up into 2 projects. We had the boiler replacement, and then we had the boiler room renovation, which included the cooling replacement. that project, the construction documents was approved by the board back in March, but we submitted those to KDE on the 22nd. That will also, is advertising this week to be bid on September 15th as well, with that work taking place in the spring and going through the summer after we get out of the heating season. North Odom High School tennis courts have been completed, and there's a little picture there for you on that.
They look lovely.
Item number 10, the site and accessibility upgrades at various elementary schools. Just a reminder, this was a schematic design was approved by the board back in July at the last board meeting, and this includes Centerfield site access and playground improvements, Camden Station structure, and Kenwood surface and shade structure, and Buckner Elementary School play surface in that area before you reach their playground. 11 we talked about. 12, LaGrange Elementary School renovations. The notices to proceed has been given to the board, or has been given to the architect. The board approved the master plan last month, and the schematic design work on that continues. The next time we come back to you, we'll have kind of a schematic design, and then we'll also have some numbers to kind of take a look at to kind of address Mr. Dodson's question that he had last month, and kind of pave the path forward for our design team.
Excellent.
Some smaller projects that we got going on, or cash projects, sometimes we refer to them as Buckner boiler replacement. That work is in process. North Oldham and Buckner campus paving repairs and restriping. The paving and patching is complete, and the sealing and striping is ongoing, as you probably noticed on your way in. The remaining work is being completed outside of school hours. The North Campus is working in the evenings as available by weather, and then the Buckner Campus is being done on the weekends. Carpet replacement at various schools. We had some items on the consent agenda about that today, including Harmony and Buckner Elementary front offices, and we're working with the installer to schedule that work during fall break as well. Former Liberty asbestos abatement and demolition. We've received the survey on that, and we will be moving forward with the development of those bid documents for your all's approval next month as well. Oldham County High School soccer and fence replacement. That was a project that we had discussed a bit over the last couple months. We'll probably get that rolling here in the next month or so to have something for you all to take a look at. And then the Oldham County High School and South Oldham High School band tower replacement. Those band towers are in place and able to be used by the schools. Painting of those will happen outside of the band schedule. The Arvin emergency fluid cooler replacement. That equipment has arrived, and that work will take place as soon as possible. North Oldham High School baseball batting cage and storage building. The update on that, as of today, each of the vertical poles have been erected, and a new next concrete pour should happen tomorrow, weather permitting, for all of the structure that supports the net. And then after that, they will move into the building of the storage structure in front of it. And then one final update from the Facilities Department with the District Facilities Planning Process. The LPC Orientation Meeting number 3 and Public Forum number 2 will be held September 1st at North Oldham Middle School. The building inventory updates we've actually completed at this point. Those have been sent over to KDE, and the building evaluations have also been submitted to KDE.
What time is that public forum, Mr.
The public
Bohannon?
forum, I believe, is at 7, with the LPC meeting happening before it at 5:30.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Are there any questions
Let me
about
ask
that?
if there are any. Mr. Kehoe?
I see the Liberty asbestos and abatement demolition.
Mhm.
Is there a date? Is the building going to be torn down?
Yes, sir.
Is there a date set for that?
I do not have a date for, until we get the bid documents put together, so that I'm going to bring some contractors on board to see what kind of timeline we'd be looking at starting versus completing that. Obviously, we do have a lot more capability to do that project than we normally do, not being a school, but there is some functions on that site that we're going to have to work around. I think one of them that we've maybe briefly talked about last month is that the county will be using that site as a satellite facility for their roads department this winter. So we'll need to, and if you're out there and you see concrete barriers out there, that's what that is. They're starting to put together a temporary facility for that salt storage facility. So we will have to work around that a little bit, but as soon as I get that information for the timeline on that, I'll let you know.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
Is there still any COVID ventilation criteria in place right now?
I think the board removed that, those mitigation strategies. I want to say,
It's last spring.
I was going to say March or maybe even May. I don't remember exactly when it was, but yeah, those were removed. I will say with the HVAC, we did go through the rest of the school year. We didn't change the schedule around on them in the middle of of last semester. But when we started back this semester, we put out a notice that we were going back to a regular schedule, and that anything outside of that schedule needs to be have a special schedule put in.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Bohannon, and hold your applause, but I'm going to ask you
Hold your
also.
applause, yeah, right.
I'm asking the audience to hold their applause. This is an excellent report. It would be very easy for you to project it so our audience can follow a little bit more closely. Would you do that for the board or consider doing that, even just a list? Because you are so busy and
Well,
we are doing so
yeah,
much.
I'd be happy to put especially the visuals that we have on there,
Yeah.
to kind of show the progress of. I think that would be probably the most appealing part of
Whatever,
it.
I leave it in your hands,
Okay.
but your department is working so hard, and I think it would be easier for the audience to follow the report if we had some visuals.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. All right, Superintendent Report number 4, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And just echo, appreciate Mr. Bohannon and Facilities Department. They've been very busy. So just like to share with the board, as you see in your, presented in your packet, there is an IOP report for myself around these 7 standards, just for your review. I'll draw your attention to number 5 in terms of managerial leadership. You've seen this in updates, just in information that I've shared with you in terms of work groups that we've shared with our principals and admin staff to be able to kick that off to help us move our district forward. Those pieces will connect to something I'll share with you here in a few moments, but you can see some pictures. There's a few letters there just for your review. And while I'm on that topic, also if you'll flip to the last page there is we have really condensed our priorities for the 22-23 school year. The board had asked me to share what those are as we move into this new school year, which we've just started. And there's 4 things that we're really trying to focus on. Not saying that we have arrived, but it gives us a focus and an emphasis with world-class learning opportunities. We have really looking at the opportunities that we provide to our students across our district. As Mr. Kehoe, or one of our board members, mentioned, we had a special call meeting last week, and we reviewed the budget process, and our discussion was revenue and expenses. As you can see, that's one of our priorities. Systems of support is the other one. As we get into strategic planning, I'm really excited about as we launch that to engage our community, our parents, our staff, and our students. Leadership development, and also employee engagement. You heard a little bit about that tonight, but how we be able to get the voice of our both certified and classified staff across our district to help us improve and grow. And then culture and climate. Again, we can't do enough to strengthen relationships and improving communication. We'll make this really quick note to share with the board. I shared this with our admin staff here in this room last week, that 20 years ago, as an example, when employees were hired into an organization or a school district, they oftentimes had to prove themselves to the organization. And now what is happening is the organization that will continue to thrive, those organizations will have to prove themselves to the employees. And that is what we're seeing across all sectors, not just in Oldham County, but in our state and in our country. And so we're working really hard with that. Our building leaders and our district leaders, our staff are really working hard to engage so that way we can support every student. And that's why we're here.
Exactly. Comments, board members, or questions?
It's a
Nykerk.
comment. This graphic is really, really good, and I think if that is not shared, or I think everybody would really like to see this, because it's a good piece of what we're doing.
Absolutely. So I don't know if we might be able to pull that up and share that here in a few moments, but I certainly have to give some credit to Ms. Webb because I do not have the creative abilities to be able to put that visual together. So thank you, Ms. Webb, for doing that, and to Ms. Six. So thank you.
Mr. Kehoe.
I just want to thank Dr. Radford and Eric Davis. Met with them last week with the county police, and we reviewed all the drills and so forth that we would go through if there was an active shooter. And I feel pretty safe in our school system right now, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kehoe. Superintendent, you have worked hard to this date, and we appreciate all of the ILP information that you continue to provide for us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one recognition. I don't know if our students are here. They are? All right, Dr. Radford, let's do our recognition, and then we'll take a quick little break.
These two girls are amazing.
I am so glad you're here. Hi. Hi. Superintendent? Mike, do you have our insert? Our insert for recognition. Oh, does somebody have a hard copy? You go ahead, sir.
Thank you for being here. So what started, in terms of recognitions for tonight, I'd like to share this with our audience and everyone who's here tonight about being kind. What started as a fun, small project in their backyard has turned into a charity organization that has touched the hearts of thousands. Oldham County students, Reagan and Rylan Richens, wanted to spread kindness throughout their community and decided to do so by making yard signs with the words, "Be kind," painted onto various patterns. Every sign is custom made for each customer, and all profits are donated to local nonprofits. Thank you to these young ladies for reminding us to spread kindness to others. And we wanted to take a moment to recognize you. Thank you.
Have demonstrated to the community. So I really encourage the whole audience to recognize the importance of doing things exactly like these young ladies did with the support of mom and dad, brother and sister. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your daughters at, tell me again where you go to school.
East Oldham Middle School.
East Oldham Middle School, yay! Thank you. Let's get a quick picture. Those who need to transition home or elsewhere an opportunity to do so before we move forward with public expression. We're all here, right? You ready, Patrick? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to return to the agenda. Thank you for allowing us to take that quick little break. We are going to begin with public expression, and I'm going to ask the vice chairman if he's ready to read the rules of public expression, please.
Give me a second. Yeah. Okay. The board will designate a portion of the meeting to hear public comment regarding areas under the board's jurisdiction. Persons wishing to speak shall sign in with the registrar and view the policy on making public comment. The board chairperson or designee will read aloud the public expression guidelines. Speakers should register by signing sign-in sheet upon their arrival to the meeting. The board will call upon the speakers in order to which they are signed in. Speakers shall not exceed the time allotted by the board, and the board will allocate time based on the number of individuals registered to speak. How many do we have?
So we have 14 persons wishing to address the board. So what is the pleasure of the board for a time?
I would say 2 minutes.
Board members?
I say 3.
I say give it to them for 3.
All right,
3
that's the
minutes.
majority of the board would like for our speakers to have 3 minutes. And I'm going to ask you, Mr. Dodson, to be our timekeeper, if you would.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our first speaker is Clint Elliott. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Clint Elliott. I'm with the Justice Defense Foundation of Kentucky. My wife and I are longtime residents of Oldham County. Our 2 sons are graduates of Oldham County Public Schools. I've submitted some written comments that some of you have probably seen, voicing concerns about the recent revisions to Policy 7015, adding sexual orientation and gender identity, which I submit and have set out the position in those comments that they are not supported by the law and, in fact, not required by the law. And I would say contrary to Title IX. Case in point, the Department of Agriculture interpretation that's at issue related to that policy is currently being challenged in federal court by a number of states, including Kentucky. But an interesting thing that the action on that policy did was really highlight for the community a growing concern about transparency. You know, one of the most fundamental, constitutionally recognized, guaranteed rights we have in this nation are parents' rights to the care, custody, and control of their children, including their education. Now, I'm reminded of an Old Testament principle from Zechariah 8:16 that reminds us even today, these are the things that you shall do. Speak the truth to one another. Render in your gates judgments that are true, sound, and right. You know, parents are receiving today mixed messages about what's going on in the district, mixed messages about what's happening in private facilities, in bathrooms, who knows what in terms of overnight housing and how students are assigned. I received some documents in response to an open records request, and I know the district has said there is no policy, but I was told that this was training materials for principals, and it's dated 2015. And it says, students should be given access to the restrooms and changing facilities that correspond to their gender identity or expression. So students get to choose. And now principals have to wrestle with that. I would suggest that this is a serious enough issue that the board should adopt a policy. We're told that there is no policy about open bathrooms and changing facilities in this district. And I think that's a leadership issue that the board needs to address. I have submitted a proposed policy that I think is reasonable to protect the safety and privacy of all students, not just some. And so I would just suggest that you consider that policy. And I would also suggest, because of the parents' rights, that you not only hear parents, but listen to parents and engage with parents, as I know some of you do, but not just in emails and text messages. Invite the community to come in and share more engaging about their concerns here.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Lisa Paris is next, followed by Laura O'Brien.
Thank you guys very much for letting us talk. I agree with Mr. Elliott. I think that there's been a little bit of mission creep with the school system, the district, maybe nationally, but certainly in Oldham County, is doing with a lot of their policies, lack of policies, a lot of the things that they've been instituting. And I think that all those things can be reviewed, and I think that one of the first places to show that you are listening would be to adopt the policy that Mr. Elliott has provided so nicely. I think the parents want it, and I think that parents are the biggest stakeholders in the children's lives, and they will be for their whole lives. Long after their school counselor forgets their name, their parent will still be there for them. And I think that needs to be respected 100%. I'd like to see more of that. And the other issue I'd like to speak about tonight is raising the taxes. I've been over the audit from the 2021 school year that I found online on the KDU website, and the audit says, I'll just read it because it's more eloquent than I can be. As of the year ended June 30th, 2021, Oldham County Board of Education sustained a stable financial status attributed to conservative spending practices. It is evident the board has effectively and efficiently managed the resources and at the same time continues to make progress. I also see on the same audit that there were several things that came in under budget for about $12 million and another $2.5 million. That was pretty stout, and I don't see where there's a gap that needs to have taxes increased. I would like to stay up all night and figure it out with somebody, but I don't know who to call to do that. Because I think it needs to be figured out by next week, right? Because there's a hearing?
Yes.
Is there a hearing? So, I'm not seeing where we need to raise taxes. I think maybe there's other ways we could cut. I know in our family budget, we've been cutting, and with 10% inflation and gas prices at $4, I think that's the way to go rather than raising the taxes. And I appreciate you guys listening, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Paris. Hold that thought, Suzanne. I do want to remind our visitors that the board did conduct a special session last week to review the budget, and that was an open meeting. We had very few people here, but it was advertised. And you also have heard, Ms. Paris, our CFO report month after month after month. So I think you do know who to contact if you would like more details regarding the budget. I would welcome you to do that. Let's move on.
Laura O'Brien is next, and Amy Wellborn is on deck.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I'll be quick. I don't need the whole 3 minutes. So I just have something I want to read really quick. In an interview with the Oldham Era published on August 3rd, Ms. Webb, the Public Information Officer of the district, was asked about transgender bathroom usage. When asked what would happen if a transgender student entered an opposite-sex bathroom without viewing it as a prank, Webb said that the district had no codified course of action because such a circumstance has never occurred. She said this situation has never happened in our schools. However, this statement is inconsistent with what I was told by the district's general counsel. On June 30th, I called Ms. Corson to ask what the schools are doing to accommodate these students. She was very helpful and transparent. She said schools are meeting with families individually and making individual plans for students, depending on what the student wants. Some students are using single-stall bathrooms. Some students are using the boys' or girls' bathroom, depending on what their gender identity is. So my question for the board is, why would Ms. Webb say that this situation has never occurred when your own general counsel said that it does? To me, this shows that the board is not being honest and transparent with what is going on. The only consistent thing that has been said is that there is no set policy for restroom usage. This is extremely concerning. Having no policy means that anyone can enter a student restroom, whether it's a parent volunteer, a teacher, or adults during after-school activities. It means fifth grade boys could be in a bathroom with a kindergarten girl. If there's no policy, then anything goes. As a district that oversees 12,000 kids, this is extremely reckless. You need to create a policy that keeps all kids safe, and you must do it before something bad happens. I urge you to adopt the policy that was given to you by Mr. Elliott. It will keep all kids safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. I do feel compelled to remind you that the Oldham era took Ms. Webb's remark out of context. And so to follow up with that, I'm not going to speak for her with reference to what the big picture was of the remark. But in the history of this district, we have not had an incident with, we've had, of course, bathroom pranks, et cetera, across the board from kids, but nothing in particular related to, I think, the group of students that's in question here. So it's not a conversation, Laura. So follow up with Ms. Webb if you'd like to clarify her remark. Thank you. We're ready.
Amy Wellborn, you're next, and Michelle Elliott, you're on deck.
Okay, thank you. I was told to lift this up. Can you hear me better?
You can actually take that out if you want, Ms. Wellborn.
Sorry about that. Good evening. I am a parent of 2 Oldham County graduates. My husband and I have lived here since 1993. I'm a concerned community member, a taxpayer, and a voter. I wholeheartedly support the board rescinding the recent revision to Policy 7015 and the adoption of Mr. Elliott's policy that he just proposed. Thomas Jefferson's memorial has a quote from him on the side of it. It says, "For I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility to all forms of control over the mind of man." The Biden administration's attempt to expand Title IX has been called one of the largest, most aggressive social engineering overreaches of our government's history. It is nothing less than federally mandated indoctrination of our children. Matthew 18:6, "If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea." We have a full house here, folks, and I'd ask that we pray and that we act for this situation now. Parents, grandparents, and all of us who are concerned Americans, we need you to do this. Go to the childrenparentrights.org/Title IX. You need to do it by September 12th. That's the deadline. There'll be information on the website for you. We cannot fight this ideology with half-truths or pretend as if the truth is somehow hateful or bigoted or transphobic. Doing so undermines any efforts to protect our children. If we are truly concerned about children, we must reflect truth in all we do and say. None of these potential harms were contemplated by Congress when they enacted Title IX in 1972. Parents, faith, and community leaders and educators must speak out courageously and clearly about the many destructive consequences that these regulations have been implemented. We only have until the 12th of September. And the last quote, Bernadette Borals from Child and Parental Rights Campaign. This change will directly affect 77 million children, requiring normalization and unquestioned acceptance of gender identity ideology as a part of their school environment. The threat to parents' rights, children's mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, religious liberties, freedom of speech, girls' safety in sports, and more is a potentially devastating effect. I would ask you to consider all of that.
Thank you.
Michelle Elliott, and then Kim Wells is next after Michelle.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here today to talk about the reasons I have pulled my elementary kids out of the Oldham County Public Schools and we went private school. Please keep in mind these are my opinions based on what I observed firsthand. Due to time constraints, I will touch on each item quickly and save a second portion for next month's meeting. SEL, social emotional learning. It is what it says, emotion-based. We We are teaching a generation of kids to feel more with their emotions, more so than using their critical thinking. Common Core math. I watched my second grader struggle with this during NTI. 1 week in a new school, and I'm already being told as a fourth grader, he's behind in math. I knew it was coming. Visitor volunteer policy. Parents should always, always have access to their children. Eating lunch with your child is just one small piece. This helps parents get to know their children's friends, and it lets their own child know they are there and that they are involved. Mask. My children will never put one of those things on their faces again. I was not willing to take a chance again this year that the board would be threatened and funding being withheld if they did not force a mask policy. Transparency, lack of thereof. Your own board members try to ask questions at meetings and are shut down. We as parents ask questions and end up with the same email response created by general counsel. I know that as a fact because an email went around after last month's board meeting. A board member said she had spoken to me through email, and I never once have emailed this particular board member or spoke to her. I had been emailing with the board's general counsel. So what that told me was one email was created, told the board to send this out, and my name was in it. And again, I never spoke to this board member. Also, my name being in that email. I don't mind. I knew what I was doing. But I was a concerned parent, and that's how I should have been referred to. Last but not least, of course, the bathroom policy and the lies that came about after that. I want to leave you with this. My kids' elementary school was and is phenomenal as far as the staff, the one we just left. Our principal and teachers were the only reason we stayed last year. What is coming through once they reach middle and high school, I'm not okay with. And my family needed to make a decision to prepare our kids on how to deal with what is being pushed on their generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Wells is next, and then Adam Springer.
I had something written up, and
Welcome.
I'm not sure that it's appropriate at this time, so I'm going to kind of take it from the heart. I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent. I was a previous school board employee, and I'm concerned about what's going on with our children. My granddaughter in particular loves school this year, loves her teacher this year. For 2 years, it's been nothing but a battle. We talked about masks last year, and there was this side and that side. The bottom line is, it's been said multiple times now, we were wrong, so admit we were wrong. We did it the wrong way for these kids. The smoke and mirrors with the whole transgender policy. The bottom line is you had to pass it in order to get money. But what you did was you ensured that if somebody was refused to use a bathroom, or if somebody went home and told their parents that there was a problem, that you wouldn't be sued because you have a policy in place that doesn't allow that. So you were protecting yourselves and not kids. And there's something that somebody mentioned to me that, and it's kind of off base a little bit, but if a boy goes into a girl's bathroom, and let's say hypothetically, there are kids in this community that are being abused, you're going to subject that little girl to a boy in that bathroom? You're going to traumatize a little girl for that reason? I don't have a problem with it. If you're gay, if you're transgender, live your life, that's fine. But these kids, they don't need it. My grandson went to South Oldham Middle School last year. My daughter pulled him out and put him in Trinity because they have a cat that goes to South Oldham Middle School. Curious if they're going to put a litter box in for the cat. We're not dealing with this appropriately. I understand that this is the times that we're living in, but there's a way to approach it. And making a change that affects 99% of the students in this community for 1% is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Thank you.
Adam Springer is next, and Sarah Townsend, you are up after Adam.
Hello, my name is Adam Springer, and I'm a parent of 3 children that attend Oldham County Schools. I worked for the Oldham County School District for 18 years until last month. Several weeks ago, we saw a social media post by Oldham County Schools announcing that there was no change to the bathroom policy in response to various rumors of what was going on in OC. My wife reached out to a representative on OCHS's SBDM to see what the written policy was at the school where 2 of our children attend. In response to that simple request, my wife was called on the phone jointly by Natalie Brown, the principal of OCHS, and the district attorney, Ann Corson. I was home and joined on the call. In the approximate 15 minutes of the phone conversation, Natalie Brown told us it was illegal not to allow biological males in the same-sex bathroom as my daughter. She repeatedly asked if we wanted to break the law. She got off the phone within a few minutes. 2, Ann Corson continued to tell us that allowing biological men into the women's restroom is allowed by law, has been allowed, and has been happening in Oldham County schools. This is in direct contradiction of what was publicly announced by the district and published in the Oldham Era. She then incorrectly cited and misrepresented the Bostick-Clayton as the law, intentionally or ignorantly. 3, when we explained this was, in fact, not the law, but her interpretation of the law, she dismissed us and told us we were welcome to get our own attorney. After following up on the phone conversation with a written correspondence to Natalie Brown, since she left within minutes of the phone call that she initiated, Ann Corson was the only one who replied back to us instead of the principal concerning my child. We are unaware what role Ann Corson is trying to convey as the overlord or of correspondence within our children's schools, but as a parent, it's deeply concerning and totally out of the scope of her duties. If you're wondering why Oldham County schools, or residents, I should say, have been increasingly losing faith and trust in the current administration and the school board, it's because of things like this. Publicly saying one thing while doing another behind closed doors. Honesty and transparency is key. Allowing biological males in the girls' bathroom and vice versa is unacceptable. I am asking the school board to immediately adopt the policy sent to you last week by Clint Elliott. The policy presents, where are we at? The policy presents is lawful, establishes safety and privacy for all students, and is consistent policy for all schools across the district. It is also the right thing to do. Will you do the right thing? Thank you.
Sarah Townsend is next. Sarah, are you here? Yes. Oh, okay, sorry. Teresa DeLue and then Joe Dennis.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for me being able to speak. I haven't spoke for a while. Grayson's homeschooled probably for hopefully the next couple of years, but I would like y'all to reconsider letting the parents have access to their children, especially the lunches. It's a 20 minutes time, and parents on a security risk to go have a 20-minute lunch with their children. It seems like a small thing, and you can volunteer, which I've done for grandchildren and children. And, you know, we go to graduations and all those things, but just having that one-on-one with your child and maybe another classmate is special. And, you know, we talk about suicides, we talk about mental health. The family should be the backbone of all this, and I think y'all should embrace us more than trying to push us out. That's the way I feel. And I just think instead of pushing the parents out, grandparents out, or families that want to come spend that 20 minutes with that child, makes that web connection stronger. It makes memories. And please reverse that and let us, you know, our child's not in there, but we now have a granddaughter that's back in. And as before, we would go and have lunch with her, and it was such a joy and such a sweet moment. We need that back. Also, I heard the therapy thing is fixed. But being a mom with thousands of hours of therapy, Grayson does 4 to 5 hours a week. We are short on therapists. There's waiting lists, especially waiting lists for afternoon. So parents don't take their kids out to go to therapy for fun or to miss school. I never did. School has always been my high priority. My kids were there unless they were really sick, and my adult children can tell you that. They went unless they were running a fever. One of the big providers shut down their pediatric therapy, so there's even going to be a longer waiting list. So just be conscious of that with parents and their kids with therapies. You know, most parents do not want to interrupt their children's education. I don't like sitting at therapies. You know, I wish Grayson could button his own buttons. I wish he could talk like us. I wish his little hands work, but they don't, and he needs those therapies. And parents don't need to be treated like criminals or something bad because they're getting those for their kids. We're there because they need it. The doctors think they need it, you know. So just be a little considerate, especially now since COVID. There's just a shortage. And it's going to take parents a little time to get on the afternoon list. But please bring back the lunches. I want to go see my granddaughter and enjoy that time with her.
Teresa, just real quickly.
Sure.
I appreciate you speaking to us on both of these issues. The board responded to visitors going in and out of the school for lunches. And I don't think we're opposed to revisiting that
Okay,
based
great.
on what our school administrators would like to see happen. Of course, school security really falls to them. So this became part of the whole big security issue. But we will continue to revisit that. I know every one of us valued those lunch periods.
Is there issues that we don't know about where it makes us a security risk for lunches? I mean, I have adult children, and I've never heard of anything.
Right. And so in order to move on, I also wanted to say, you began by saying that you thought we had fixed the mental health problem. We have not, but we are all.
Therapy.
No,
Therapy.
therapy.
Yes,
Yeah,
we did
therapy.
change that.
Oh,
yeah,
therapy
yeah.
changes.
So we are
Good for y'all.
continuing to work really hard
Okay.
to meet those students, but also you need to work individually with the school wherever your grandchild is.
I've already called, and they're going by the policy of the board. So this, get some clarity on that with all the schools, because
Continue to work with your school, and I would say that to everybody. Work with your school administrators. And we're out of time.
then when did they come back and
Teresa.
say if there's a policy in place, we say, no, there isn't, we can come have lunch? Is there a policy stating we can't come have lunch?
Stay tuned for more information. Right now, there is.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Dennis is next. Lindsay, you're on deck.
Welcome, Mr. Bennett.
How are you, Mr. Raffer? Board, I appreciate you having me. First, before I start, you were talking about handing out 3 pages of financials. Why don't you just post it all online? Simple. Put the whole budget, everything online, everybody can see it. And then when we're talking about changing, being able to public speak, why don't we have our attorney actually tell the people why we're changing the rules? I think everybody should know that. So I'm here about the bathroom issues. And I had a whole speech written up. I'm not even going to go through it. You got me, Ms. Fletcher. You said there is no issues. It's kids joking around. Those kind of kids are not the ones causing trouble. There was a young lady in a school that had someone walk in on her. You know what she told me? She felt violated. She don't feel safe using the school bathrooms. The parent actually complained. You know what response the parent got? Nothing. Last week, a parent tells me, hey, a student advised the parent he was given a ride to that he was going to the bathroom, comes out of the bathroom, and sees a boy coming out of the girls' bathroom. He goes, oh, that's gender identity. So I think when you talk about transgender kids, I think a lot of people are worried about gender identity. I mean, they really are. I could be adult male going to Donuts for Dad at Centerfield Elementary, and those girls' stalls are half stalls. I could go in there, look at all the kids' genitals, go to the bathroom, girls passing by could see my genitals, come out, and the school could say, what are you doing in the bathroom? I identify. That is the rule that you have on the books as of right now. You are going to pin law enforcement against the schools because law enforcement is going to protect those schools. Or I mean protect the children, where the schools will let it get away, just like Loudoun County, Virginia. 2 young ladies were raped, sexually assaulted because of similar views that your board had with their board. How are elementary staff and principals supposed to teach kids? It's very structured. Boys go into this bathroom, girls go into this bathroom. A mom comes to you and says, I want my daughter to use this other bathroom. You're going to allow it. These poor boys drop their trousers to go to the bathroom.
Mr.
And
Dennis, I apologize, but we are out of time, and I think any of us would, I would welcome a further conversation with you.
I don't need a further conversation in private. This is for the public.
True.
If you want to give extra 10 seconds, I'm almost done.
True. Okay.
Thank you. All I'm saying is it's a very dangerous policy/non-policy. You need to fix it. Please fix it. I don't want anybody's daughter to become a victim like Loudoun County, Virginia. Thank you.
Lindsay Tishner is next, and Allison Akers, you will follow Lindsay.
As a member of this community, a graduate of Oldham County High School, a parent of 2 Oldham County High School graduates, an aunt to 6 current students, and an aunt to a couple future students, and the anticipated state senator for this county, I would encourage you to consider adopting the policy that Mr. Elliott has proposed, and which would offer privacy and protection for all students regarding this issue. Doing so would provide confidence to our parents, knowing that you've not just heard them, but you've listened to their concerns. Myself and my team knocked on thousands of doors in this community, and one of the top concerns that we heard was in regards to the direction of our school systems. The issue of allowing students to choose which bathroom they're most comfortable in is something that this community overwhelmingly does not support. If you continue to allow this school system to be dictated to and directed by entities outside of this community, instead of being directed by community members within it, you will continue to see the pushback that you see today. From asking students what their preferred pronouns are on the first day of school, to the inappropriate books in our schools, DEI, SEL, CRT, and every acronym in between, gender identity, and now the open bathroom policy. This community doesn't want any of these things. Again, I would just encourage you to take this proposed bathroom policy into consideration, as it does offer a solution for all students and reflects what this community wants. Thank you.
Allison Akers is next, followed by, I think it's Marianne Ali.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I'm here to talk about Harmony Elementary School cafeteria. A little background about me. I was raised in Louisville. I went to Assumption from a middle-class upbringing. My dad was a pilot. Mom, unfortunately, was an alcoholic. Growing up, going home, we didn't have meals. or breakfast or dinner. So lunch at school was very vital for me growing up. So I'm a huge advocate that not all socioeconomic statuses are, judged, doesn't matter what level you come from, what home, lunches are important for kids. Last year I got the opportunity to volunteer in the cafeteria, and unfortunately I saw 3 instances where kids went hungry. If they did not pick the right entree that they wanted, they were not allowed to go back and pick a different one. If they picked the pizza and they did not eat the pizza, they were not allowed to go and pick the Lunchable. They left hungry. And I did not feel that was right, to bring a child back into the cafeteria to say, no, you cannot have the Lunchable. I'm sorry. We can't do anything about it. So I felt that maybe was just a free lunch restriction. Next year will be better. So this year, I thought things are going to be great. Unfortunately, they weren't. Now we're paying for lunches. And the lunches at school, I have pictures. On Facebook, we're able to see pictures of other schools around the county. Awesome choices, different varieties. We don't have our snack trays back. This is ours. At school, and I'm not allowed to actually go into the cafeteria as a mom, and I hate that. I hope that changes, that we're able to come back in. And I really hope that we give more options to the kids. If they don't like the entree, that they're able to pick a snack, that they don't have to leave hungry, because that's important to kids to have that nutrition to learn. And also, they've also run out of food twice since the beginning of school. They have been able to give them an option of a cheese sandwich, but I feel that that's poor management, mismanagement. There's also 1 lunch lady left next week. We're losing our lunch lady this week. So we have 1 lunch lady. So please send us more lunch ladies, maybe from another school, maybe from one of these awesome schools that have great choices, that they could come and help us so we can have more choices for our kids. Because kids should not be leaving hungry. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Akers, we appreciate you being here and your efforts to volunteer and visit the school. Can you not hear me back there? So I just wanted to thank you, Ms. Akers. The issues that you bring to the attention of the board are really local within your school building, Harmony Elementary issues. So I want to make sure that you try to address that with the administrator and the site-based council in your building. Oh. All right, Ms. Akers. Thank you so. Thank you. Thank you.
Miriam or Marianne Ali?
Good afternoon.
So I am a freshman at Oldham County High School, and I just wanted to talk about the bus issue. And I understand that there isn't enough bus drivers, but I still don't feel like we should have to deal with the bus being really crowded. There's 3, even 4 people to a seat. Nobody can walk through the aisle. It's really hard. My stuff, like my water bottle, hits people, and their stuff, like their backpacks, hit me, especially while they're walking through the aisle. It's way too hot. The windows are not even open most of the time. The air conditioning's not even on. I don't know if it's not working on all the buses. People's arms and elbows hit me while they're walking, or even trying to unzip their jacket. It simply just hits me in the face. People's thighs and legs are over top of each other, because I shouldn't be able to feel whoever's on the other side of the bus. Like, I shouldn't be able to feel their leg. Like, they're that close to me. That's so many people in a seat. And their knees and their legs are literally lodged into my butt and my side, and it's very, very painful. Not everyone has nervous system issues, but I do. So, like, all the numbness and the, tingling that I feel is, super severe from being on the bus. And for some reason, the bus drivers decide to slam on the brakes. So our faces are like hit the back of the seat from like whoever's in front, the other seat in the front, and there are kids who have actually fallen on the aisle because of it. And I also want to talk about the lunch issues because there's way too little. When there's not always fruit. It's probably like twice a week where there's fruit. And when there is fruit, it's very small. Like the apples are so small, and same with the oranges. And the oranges, the first day I saw the oranges, they had large, black, like greenish, bluish spots on them, which is very disgusting. I did not want to eat that at all. And the foods, like the fries on the first day of school, were soggy and not cooked all the way through. And the meat tasted like I was eating a sponge. Like, it was that disgusting. I couldn't even tell if it was meat. It didn't look like meat. Wasn't cooked all the way through. There was barely any seasoning. I don't really care about seasoning, but I just want to make sure that it actually tastes like meat. And that's all I have to say.
Marion, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Marion.
Marion, tell me again what school you're in.
Oldham County High School.
As a freshman?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I do have one more question, Marion. What's your bus number? Thank you.
Ron Mann is our final speaker.
Oh, he's coming up.
Name's Ron Mann, and this is my first time to ever come to a board meeting. I am an Oldham County School bus driver, and this is my 4th year of driving a school bus. I understand what that girl is talking about, and that's one of the reasons I could say I'm up here. My main concern is, I've got a question for you board members. How many of you all have driven a school bus? Any of you? No. Has
No.
anybody that you all have been on a school bus and rode along with the drivers?
Yes?
You have? That it? Just, well, you have, or you shaking your head?
Ridden on the bus with, yes, with the
Okay. Well, my stress level is 0 until I get on that school bus. And I only want to make sure it's not high. It's that I get those kids to and from school safely. That was my top priority when I took this job. First question asked to me, safety is first. Now, I've brought up a few issues over the last 3 years plus now about driving a school bus. I love it. I got great parents, and I've got great students, and I can't complain. They do what I ask when I ask, and I have very simple rules on my bus. But I've listened for the past 2.5 weeks, plus last year, of complaints from other drivers and what they're going through. And my point is, something needs to be done, especially when it comes to picking up second and third runs at these schools where the bus compound is calling these schools, telling them to get the students out, get them ready for us to pick up so we can get them home at a reasonable hour. And it doesn't seem they can get anybody on the telephone, like the staff is gone, like we as bus drivers are not important. And that happens every day. I've heard it for the past 2.5 weeks. The bus drivers at 2 and 3, and they can't get the kids out on time. Or they got to run back and get some. I don't know what the problem is with the staff. Why that somebody at that staff, especially the principal, that's their job to see if their students get home, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you all feel about it, but I also feel like you all have got a lot of issues right here. And I've got every one of those type of children on my school bus that have issues. And I know everybody else does too. But something needs to be done. Now, I talked to Brent Deves out there in the hallway a few minutes ago, and he said we could set up a meeting. Basically, me and him, maybe Mr. Radford if he's possible, because I also stem back to last year when we had COVID. It was acting like the bus drivers didn't matter. If the kids had COVID, who had it? We had a seating chart that we had to provide to the schools. But we weren't told if that student had COVID when they got on the bus or just, had symptoms of it, but didn't come down with COVID. I feel the faculty knew in the schools, but we as bus drivers didn't know it. and we walked right by them, and they walked right by us within a foot. You know, yeah, we had masks on, but who knows what the CDC says about the mask? You know, do they work or don't they? I hope we don't go back to that. I really like seeing kids' faces because I made a comment last year when we were able to take them off. I told every one of them to get off my bus because I didn't recognize them.
Oh, good job, Mr. Mann.
And that was it. But pretty much, I think, go ahead, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say we're out of time, Mr. Mann.
Okay, that's understandable. I'm just wanting, like she said, there are problems on school buses. I'm not going to bring up the money issue because I know you're doing the best you can. That's all I got to say.
Listen, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you, Mr. Mann, and everybody who chose to address the board this evening. Thank you so much. Superintendent.
Just to our public expression, our parents and community members who were here, I know that several concerns were expressed tonight, and I know that our board's listening, and appreciate that. I also want to recognize that some of our employees were inadvertently, or whether or not, all of our folks work really hard, and some may have been mentioned tonight in public expression, and I think very respectfully. However, I just want to make a mention that each of our folks work really hard to try to support our students. I also appreciate our parents and community members again being here because I know that you're advocating for your son or your daughter, your grandchild or whomever. So thank you. And Mr. Mann, I don't know if you're still here, but we certainly appreciate our bus drivers and all that you do to support our students because our bus drivers are oftentimes really the first employees that our students see each day and the last ones that they see before they get off the bus. So can't thank you enough, and certainly that can only go so far, but really recognize and appreciate what you and all of our drivers do. So thank you.
Absolutely. So we just have a little bit more business on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen. We have 2 action items. Superintendent, action item Q, please. Hardship.
Yes, recommend to approve.
So this is an action item Q. We have some student requests for early graduation. Any questions or comments? Motion to approve made by Ms. Hundley, seconded by Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. The second action item is R, to consider locations for our board meeting work sessions.
Yes.
And we have one school that has volunteered to host the September work session, and that's LaGrange Elementary. Thank you for stepping up, Ms. Thomas. We're anxious to get into your building and do a little walkthrough perhaps at the beginning of the meeting. And the rest of you all can think about whether a date might work for you. That's our intention, to try to get into schools more often. Thank you so much. I guess we just have one information item, and that is the monthly district energy usage bill report, if you all would review that. And, we need to approve that, the locations for the work sessions. Just did that to see if you were paying attention. Is that your recommendation?
Yes, I recommend to approve.
Motion to approve.
That's September 12th?
Yes.
September 12th.
Action item R. Motion is made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor, and that would be 5-0. Thank you, sir. At this time, the board needs to go into executive session. Does anybody have that pulled up? We need to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101C. The purpose is to discuss 2 litigation matters pertaining to student injuries, 1 special education matter, 2 employment claim matters, and 1 Title IX complaint. The board needs to go into executive session pursuant to this KRS to discuss litigation preparation, the public disclosure of which could jeopardize the board's position. So may I have a motion to go in? Ms. Hundley made the motion and seconded by Ms. Nykirk. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Thank you all for being here.